Ti hei mauri ora ki te whai au ki te ao mārama ti hei mauri ora e. Ko Matariki tēnā e rewa ake ana ki te pai, no reira tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. Tēnā koutou i roto i te ahuatanga o rātou kua haere atu. Ki te pūtahitanga o rehua, ki te kāinga tuturu o te tangata. Rātou ki a rātou, tātou te pito ora ki a tātou tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa, i roto i te kaupapa o Matariki Tauira. A really awesome welcome to everybody to come along to Matariki Tauira. Matariki Tauira, this is our second year, run here and by Te Akamauri, where we ask particular staff members from council, and what we do is we allocate them a star, and their goal as a Tauira, as a student of Matariki, is to study that star. They study the star, the whetū, in terms of what it means for te ao Māori, and then they come and share. The person who's about to come and speak today knew nothing about the star that they're about to talk about 2.5 weeks ago, but they are willing to learn to be a tauira and share the knowledge that they have. Tomorrow, we will also be looking at another whetū, and the person, Ola, ke pasa, who is speaking, who will be talking about this particular whetū, is in the room today. On our chairs in front of us, we have our pathfinders. So if something that our next speaker says really interests you, you can see where in Te Akamauri you can access knowledge about the stars of Matariki. But this year we're looking at the winter sky. Now, the winter sky is about all of the other stars in the night sky, all the other heavenly bodies that we can see during te wā o te takurua in the time of winter. So, our next speaker works here at council. I'll get him to introduce himself and what area he works in, but really want us to give a big hand today for Greg Kiek. Greg, no mai hari.
Kia ora koutou. Ko Amatole te maunga, ko Fish ta awa, ko Albany ta rohe, ko Shaw Park ta kāinga, ko Kiek rawa ko Lawson nā whānau, ko Garth rawa ko Jenny, o ku matua, ko Greg Kiek ahau. Mo reni nōnke, nkosia ko kundubumela, o kūbendi te tanam tlanje. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Greg Kiek. I'm the Corporate Planning and Strategy Manager at Rotorua Lakes Council. I am South African, if you couldn't tell. My welcome this afternoon is in the language of isiXhosa, which is the language of the people from where I'm from in South Africa, and also the language of Nelson Mandela. So, I am from the Great Dot at the bottom of Africa, in an area called the Eastern Cape, in a district, Albany, and within that Shaw Park, used to farm next to the Fish River, and I come from about 5 generations of South Africans, stemming from German and Scandinavian heritage. The picture on the right is the traditional wear of the people of the language that I welcomed you this afternoon. When I was approached to do this talk, it really is a privilege for me to be here this afternoon and actually share with you what I've learned. I found this incredibly difficult. Not because it's not something I wasn't interested in or anything like that, but really because there wasn't a lot of stuff I could find on the internet, and that's really the place where you start on this. So today I'm going to share with you what I've learned through this journey, and some of it will be somewhat factual, some of it will be my understanding and interpretation of that. But I do want to acknowledge, first off, that this is research done through my lens, which is a non-Māori lens. I just also want to acknowledge that the research is that of a beginner and is related to a very complex and way of thinking, and it's steeped in Māori culture. So when I was asked to do this, I went looking for some cool quotes. And the first one that stuck up was from Benjamin Franklin. And I think this is really apt for what I'm doing here today. Tell me, and I may forget. Teach me, and I may remember. Involve me, and I will learn. And I just want to thank you, Kenny, for approaching me for this, because without really having the date set in stone when I'm going to do this talk, I don't think I would be researching this at this time of the year. I'm the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing. And I just want to reiterate that today, because I really am a beginner in this journey. For centuries, civilizations have used heavenly bodies to track the passage of time. Maori have done the same thing, and they've used 3 cycles, which has been the sun's annual motion, which is the movement of the sun through the southern and northern solstice points, the movement of the sky, which is the movement of the stars, and the phases of the moon. When you combine all of these, along with some biological and environmental indicators, you get a very complex system of understandings called Maramataka. Maramataka literally means the moon turning. It's a Māori lunar calendar. It's a traditional way of which time was marked. Historically, the Maramataka was consulted for almost all the activities that took place within the iwi community. Some days of the Maramataka were better to do certain activities than others. For example, planting and harvesting supplies was conducted almost always through consulting the Maramataka. Similarly, fishing or holding an important hui, conducting rituals such as baptisms, the Maramataka was consulted. The Maramataka was also marked significant annual events, such as celebrations in the time of Matariki and other seasonal activities. So each year has 12 months, based on the cycles of the moon. These lunar months begin and end when the moon is full, and they last for 30 days. The stars also play an important part in the calendar. Each month is represented by a star or stars. In Pipiri, May or June, the appearance of Matariki signals the Māori New Year. The sun, moon and stars were integral practices pertaining to agriculture, architecture, fishing, calendrical systems and exploration. Although early ethnographers attempted to record this knowledge, their work seems to only reflect somewhat superficial understanding. This is due to the complex systems that could only be captured by theoretical means. Practical application is necessary to generate a better understanding. The whetū that I was given to research today is Atutahi. It's known by a bunch of different names, Otahi, Otahi, and it means first or single light. The star's name, I think it's Greek, is Canopus. So there's a few kōrero that are around about the star. One kōrero is that Atutahi is a male, and in the spirit of vanity, he left the basket and ran away from Mangaroa, so that he might be termed the firstborn of the stars, and hence the most important. Another kōrero states that Atutahi was the firstborn child of Rangi, who refused to enter the Milky Way, and so turned it sideways and rose before it. Another kōrero states that he was not placed in the sky by Tane. When the great basket of Tane tipped up and the stars spilled out, Atutahi remained on the outside because of his tapu nature. A few facts about this star. So, he's the brightest star in the night sky outside of the Milky Way, second only to Takurua. He's known as the eldest stars in Te Ao Māori. It's a circumpolar star, which means he's a star that's in the southern sky and above the horizon in any given latitude. He's a tapu star and maintains the sacredness of the other stars. It's Tohunga of the skies. He holds a close relationship to Rehua, who will be spoken about tomorrow, and he's one of the stars that Māori would offer karakia to protect crops from frost. So the significance of this star is placed on 3 areas of Māori life: kumara planting and weather forecasting, navigation, and whitebait movement. So kumara cultivation. Of all the stars known to Māori, Atutahi, along with the star Puanga, are valuable because of their intimate association with kumara cultivation. These 2 stars could be used to predict the weather, and their appearance in the eastern sky meant that it was time to plant kumara. Elston Best, who in the late 19th and early 20th centuries was one of the few people to gather and publish Māori knowledge on astronomy, wrote, when Atutahi is standing far out in the Milky Way in about October, a dry summer will follow. If close to it, inclement season follows. Navigation. I could have spent all afternoon speaking about this. This really fascinated me, and as I delved into it, it started to make a bit more sense to me. Atutahi is often mentioned as a star of much importance to navigators, not only because of as a guiding mark, but also because of it foretold weather conditions. As the Tauira navigated the Pacific Ocean, the Awa was encountered with to ensure safety. The Fetu provided the points of reference to guide the Tauira to its destination, which was Aotearoa. Atutahi is one of those stars. And on that picture right on the other side, Atutahi was the star on the bottom right. The principles of traditional Polynesian navigation were simple, but its practice was refined over generations of experience. The greatest skill of all navigators was their ability to read the night sky. The rising and setting points of the brightest and most distinctive stars and planets were gauged with the help of sophisticated star compasses, and then memorized. Compasses were also used to chart the winds. So navigators steered their canoes towards a star on the horizon. When the star rose too high in the sky or set beneath the horizon, another would be chosen, and so on through the night. 7 to 12 stars were sufficient for one night's navigation, along with the moon and bright planets. At daybreak, navigators noted the position of the canoe in relation to the rising sun, and as the sun got high in the sky, they looked to where it would set in the evening. Te Kapehu Fetu, I hope I pronounced that right, the Maori star compass, divides the 360 degrees around the canoe in the open ocean into different whare. The location of these houses depends on where the sun, moon, and stars set and rise. The navigator attempts to keep the canoe on course relative to these observations. In making long ocean voyages, the ancestors of the Maori carried on their vessel one or two expert stargazers, men versed in the lore of Tatai Arorangi. During the course of the voyage, these men passed each night scanning the stars in order to direct the steersman and also to be able to foretell weather conditions. Other experts attended to steering during the daytime when the sun, wind, and sea conditions were noted. Tradition states that one of the stars relied on during the voyage here of the Takitumu was Atutahi, along with many others. Whitebait movement. The expression kohi o tahi denotes the heavy rains in early winter. This is the sign for the inanga, or whitebait, to go out to sea, there to give birth to their young. This is called the migration of the kohi o tahi, or otahi ma rehua. The second migration is called takero, and occurs when the star of takero appears. There's a korero that says that Rehua was asked by the inanga, "What are we to do?" Rehua replied, "When you see the sky redden, that is the signal to hasten to Wainui, and there give birth to your offspring. You will then return whence you came. Your offspring will follow in the 4th month, when your ancestor Takero is seen. The last company will proceed to Wainui." Just on that slide, you'll see in the bottom corner over there the whitebait fritters. I really wanted to attempt to make some of those for today, but couldn't because I couldn't get hold of whitebait. And apparently really expensive, and I don't know if that's because it's seasonal or not, but I will definitely give that a try when the time comes. So what have I learned through this process? This was quite a difficult one for me. I have absolutely no knowledge of what I was talking about today 2.5 weeks ago. And I had to really start at the basics. The basics being the difference between a pepeha and a mihi. And from there, as I got into a bit of deeper researching, I realized that this is not something that I'm going to ever get to the end of. This is not something you can just learn out of a book and expect to know how this one star relates to everything. Everything seems to be interconnected. So the reason that I would reference this as a journey is that as I dug a little deeper, I found myself moving into a whole bunch of other topics that were not directly related to the star and what I was researching. And as I started my journey with this research, I really struggled. So there was limited information on the internet about this star. And it's called by a bunch of different names, so it made it quite challenging. Only when I had a chat to a colleague did he actually point me in the right direction. To start, he didn't give me the information, but put me on a start, and from there I could find everything that really shot off from the start. So I would count that as one of the successes of this, is that it prompted me to go and speak to someone. And so much knowledge can be only taken from a book, and actually having a conversation with someone, you'll learn so much more. I learned that everything is connected and that you can't look at a single topic in isolation. In order to completely understand, you need to understand the whole picture. And that is something that I feared today, because I was only giving you a little snippet of what I had actually learned and could very easily get it wrong. I fear that technological advances that we have made over time have come at the detriment of being connected to nature. So the reliance on nature for more than just the provision of a peaceful place has been lost by so many along the way. I am somewhat connected to that, is that there was a trust in the practices passed down through generations. So much so that they put their lives in their understanding of traveling by the stars. There's not really anywhere to go when you're out in the sea. You had to find your way. I can hardly get to Countdown without a GPS. So if you put that in perspective, I guess we're also used to our technological advances that we've lost the art of being able to travel by nature and by the stars. So I just really want to thank Kenny firstly for the opportunity to be able to prompt me in starting this journey. This is not a journey that I really completely understand. I'm never going to arrive at. I'm only going to have a very basic theoretical knowledge of, because I'm not going to be practicing it in everyday life. But really, really keen and really willing to carry on learning about this. And as I go and as I now understand there are more and more stars to be looking outside of just Matariki, I believe that it's pretty much endless. So I will continue to learn these stars with my kids, with my wife who's a teacher, and we'll continue on this journey together, and hopefully in a few years' time be able to stand back here and talk about another one that I've learned. So, thank you.